We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports. We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Huge show in store for you tonight. Is LSU looking good in recruiting? Adam on YouTube says Denver Harris is in town. Let's go. Yes, he did meet with Brian Kelly here today. You might want to subscribe to the AYS message board, ayssnetwork.com. We put some tidbits in there this morning, kind of gave you a little bit of a rundown there of what was going on earlier this morning and then this afternoon. Also, Javian Taviano commits tomorrow midday at 12 o'clock. We'll be covering that all day long, or I say all day long, but we'll be covering his commitment tomorrow. So it could be a big day, big week, big weekend for LSU in recruiting, as Xavier Hill, another backup offensive lineman, has gone into the transfer portal. You know, I made a tweet today, 16 players from LSU's 2020 class is either playing for another team or has already entered the transfer portal or is in the transfer portal. That class ended number 4. So, look, let me just say this. We freak out about recruiting so much, but now with the portal, you can have 16 guys that are in your class right now not finish the rest of their career. B.J. Ojulari was a part of that class. He's entering the draft, and the mainstay of that entire class was Kayshon Boutte. He's really the only star, I guess you could say, that was in that recruiting class that's going to be here. As you know, Eric Gilbert's moved on. Eli Ricks has moved on. So many other things. And in today's society, man, in today's game, a lot of times you're just going to have to, quite honestly, like we can freak out. We can get good players and, things can change under Brian Kelly. And I'm sure that they will change under Brian Kelly. But nevertheless, I mean, it's a big deal. I'll bring the tweet up right quick, guys. I can do that right quick. I think Pooh showed me the other day. Hopefully I don't screw this up. I think, was it Control Plus? Let me put that down. But this is what I was referring to. 16 players from LSU's 2020 class have either transferred and or playing for another team or now in the transfer portal. That class finished 4th in the country last year or in that year. So look, we're going to talk about it. I think that LSU shapes up well for a lot of these guys. Denver Harris, we know who's on campus or was on campus. He'll be leaving here shortly. And then Javian Taviano. So LSU replenishing themselves, and LSU is going to have a big weekend. Another guy nobody's talking about is safety out of Mississippi, Isaac Smith, that I think LSU could sit good for. So we got a lot to talk about in reference to recruiting, but that's not all we're going to get into here tonight. I will get into Ruffino's rants. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Arizona and Sean Miller got some of their things back today in reference to the IARP. If you don't remember what the IARP is, it was the investigative unit that investigated all of the basketball scandals. Sean Miller was not hit with anything, but here's a big thing. His assistant coaches were. One assistant coach got a 10-year show cause. And a lot of the things that he was doing is a lot of the same things that they blamed Will Wade for doing. Guys, let's just be clear. Look, I don't care what happens to Will Wade. Like seriously, at this point, if nothing happens to Will Wade, sounds great. If something does happen to Will Wade and he gets a show cause, sounds great. Let's move on from Will Wade at this exact moment. It's the Matt McMahon show now. All I care about at this exact moment is that these schools aren't getting hit, right? Like, only thing I care about is LSU. I hope, whatever's going to happen to Will happens to Will. At this point, I don't care anymore. All I care about is LSU. So if you're going to listen to this Ruffino's rants and you say Blake hates this guy, Blake hates that, and so many people put so many fucking things in my mouth, words in my mouth that I never say. By the way, if you're in the chat and nothing comes out of my mouth and you start shit, I just want to let you know that I'm going to confront you about it. Don't start shit when no shit's there. You know who you are. But bottom line, because I haven't said shit about anybody or anything, but bottom line is I want to dive in a little bit into this IARP. Memphis Spence was the one that broke it on this show about, he came on the week before the Will Wade actually got fired. He said that he heard that LSU was going to be getting that notice of allegations. Well, really, I think he said it on a Tuesday, and then what was it, Zach? That Saturday, I think. That Saturday or Sunday, LSU got the notice of allegations. He's really, really, really big into college basketball. He's got a lot of sourcing. I'll touch a little bit with that on him. We might start off the show with that as Memphis Spence does join us here at 7:30 tonight. I announced this last night. We're not giving away. Our good friends over at Playpool are giving away $1,000 for a college football bowl pick'em. I will give some picks here tonight, and we'll talk about LSU bowl practice as well and around your SEC. So we got a lot that we got to get into on this Wednesday night. But before we do that, let's get to these comments. That's a lot, man. It's a lot. We might go a little bit longer than we normally do. But we do have the Golden Boot Pod, I believe. Pooh Bear just mentioned it. Says that was the Saturday before the Golden Boot Pod's first episode. What an anniversary. There you go. Yeah, we're coming up. Hey, listen, we're getting close. We're getting close. I mean, it was the end of last year. So the official college football chatter on YouTube says #Ask Blake. Do we have news on Jaden participating in bowl prep? More likely he returns. All right, guys, should I just go ahead and say? I mean, listen, you already know. I mean, he is participating. Let me clarify about participating. LSU posted a video, so I'll put this on LSU. I'm not going to tell you what I know, but LSU posted a video of him and Brian Kelly talking. He was taking a knee in full pads right next to him. A guy going into the NFL draft, in my opinion, probably wouldn't be doing that, right? I mean, it's really difficult for me to see Jaden Daniels participating in bowl prep and him not going to the draft. Or like if he was going to the draft, I really do believe that he'd be there. And now, has he just not made a decision yet? Guys, I forgot to ask, can we pull up this Mel Kiper? I retweeted it. Y'all can go down my page. Mel Kiper did come out with the QB big board again today. It was his 2.0 big board. If we can find that, it's I want to bring that up to start the show off after the break. I think Jaden was 8th. So it's just going to it's just going to determine it's just going to determine what he decides. Jerry Zimmerman says Harris and Ricks at corner with Taviano at safety would be fire AF. Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if I'm breaking any news here or not, I think that they are. And look, Taviano can play safety, and I think that he ultimately will at LSU. But I mean, they're recruiting him at corner, right? Like they're recruiting him at corner. So I think that they're going to give him a chance at a lot of different things. I think they're going to give him a chance to do pretty much whatever he wants to do. Barrett Contra Granger says, ask Blake, how are teams supposed to build any type of depth these days? It's impossible. Well, let me say this. It's not been really impossible for Georgia. Hasn't necessarily been impossible for Alabama. I mean, guys, you're going to have, I think we have 8 of guys that were on the roster this year, 8 players in the portal. I mean, you're probably going to add, I would assume, 35 new players, and you could add more. I mean, look, if these kids want to play, here it is. Okay. Then they want to play. Here's the big board. Can we just hold on to that right quick? Let's hold on to it. I'll mention it right at the break. So you can do it. And look, you losing 8 to 10 guys that aren't contributors, and doesn't bother me none. Andrew Martin says JD does have until January 16th to declare or return. He does, but Andrew, and listen, I could be wrong here. I could be dead wrong, and I might be dead wrong. I don't know what the young man's going to do. Why wait until January the 16th? Like you're playing, he probably won't play in the bowl game. He's injured. Why risk going out there and getting hurt more if you're not coming back to LSU? It's all that I'm saying. You know, like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, I will tell you this. We'll talk about this tonight too. There's a little bit of a QB battle going on right now between Nuss and old Walker, wasn't it? Old Walker's out there ripping that bit. Shit. So what? Hey, look. So was Garrett. Garrett was out there ripping it too, man. Hey, man. Iron sharpening iron on all three levels, including Daniels. And listen, if I'm Jaden or if I'm in Jaden's camp, I'm like, listen, Big Daddy, you better make a decision. You got two young Brahma Bulls coming out behind you. No pause. Pooh, can we get past the pause if I just say something bad? You know, like if it's how about this? If it's a level 5 or below pause, let's just not do the pause. But if it's anything 5 and above, hit me with the pause. Okay? No, don't give me the hell no. Okay? Because 2/3 of this show is me saying pause. Okay? Yeah, Zach's with us. I can't really see him because there's a glare coming off the side of his head with that Dr. Strange haircut. Look at him. Bam! England Senior Danny or Danny England Senior says Daniel's going to transfer. No, he's not. No, he's not. But it wouldn't, you know, I shouldn't say that. I mean, what is it? JT Daniels. Hey, I think this will be what, guys, the fourth school he's played for. So let's go down it. USC, Georgia, so this will be fourth. West Virginia, and then this will be his fourth team. Colin Van Helsing or whatever that dude's name was. You know what I mean? All right, let's get this thing rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those Facebook groups. Listen, there's so many of you listening to us live on Facebook. Hit the Facebook groups. Hit your own social media pages. We greatly appreciate you doing that. If you're listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell. Only 300 away from 5K. Get us to 5K on YouTube. We appreciate you doing that. If you're listening to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, XM Radio, TuneIn app, we appreciate you doing that as well. Rate, review, and subscribe. Let's pay our first bill around this thing. Talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. I'm putting in a parlay this weekend, Pooh. I think we're going to do a 7-leg parlay. I'm ready to risk it all. Like Pokemon. Got that catch 'em all. I'm ready to risk everything. $5 7-leg parlay. Place I'm doing that is betonline.ag. We talk about them next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Vardo & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Vardo & Sons. Go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992. 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. If Denver Harris, let me pause that. Let's get. Well, I'll get back to that in a minute. Let me just confirm something. Jerry Zimmerman says, how y'all think the Tigers baseball fares against SEC competition? Tennessee's going to be really good again. Like really, really, really good again. I think Vanderbilt still got some guys that can play. I think Florida's going to be pretty damn strong. There's going to be a lot of really good teams in the SEC West or SEC and just in general. I think Arkansas is going to be pretty talented. So we'll see. Buck on Facebook says Walker Howard going to be the next Joe Burrow. Watch. Well, let me just say this. I'm not going to compare another human being to Joe Burrow until they get to 60 total touchdowns at LSU. You know, or really just in general, in the SEC, right? Like, guys, Joe Burrow had 65 total touchdowns while playing in the SEC. Like, I don't mean this in a wrong way. I played in the Southland Conference. Lindsey Scott doing it is unbelievable. Having 60 touchdowns anywhere in any division is unreal. However, it's different when you do it in the SEC. Like, let's be real, dog. Let's be real. Okay. Like, again, I love Lindsey Scott. I hate that I hate that he played at Lamar. Wish you would have been at Southeastern. Think Southeastern could have gone deeper in the playoff. My alma mater. I think they could have gone deeper in the playoff probably with Lindsey Scott. Nevertheless, it's a different. What did I say? Lamar? I mean, incarnate word. I always say Lamar, dude. Every single time. Every single time, but correct. Incarnate word. Pooh had to correct me. Last one, then we'll get rolling. BGS Goat on Facebook, on YouTube says, ask Blake, what are the odds for us to flip the tight end KP Pimpton, the commitment at Vandy? You know, this is interesting. I do wonder. I do wonder to some extent if LSU would take 3 tight ends. Like, if you're going to take 3 tight ends in this class, why wouldn't you take one from the portal that has more experience? I'm not saying LSU won't flip him. I think that there's a reason that they brought him in. But I also will tell you this now. Vanderbilt is doing some things, and you can laugh at that all you want to, but when Clarkley and Vanderbilt have to go all in for Pimpton, you know, like, he might be a main focus. With that being said, I'm just going to subscribe to LSU not getting 3 tight ends in this class. I'm not saying that they won't, because it could happen. You know, and LSU might want to do that, but it just, you know, I want to see a team. I want to see a team like LSU get 3 tight ends in one class when there's not a limit, before I start saying, well, if you have a need, you just attack that need until you fill it, right? So, you know, spare me. Buck says he's going to break that watch. Buck, let's make a bet. Buck, if Walker Howard breaks the 65 total touchdown mark in one season and wins a Heisman, more than 65 touchdowns in a year, and wins a Heisman, I'll put $500 on it. Let's make that bet. I'm not saying he can't do it. Christopher Jernigan says, my wife loves tight ends. Jesus Christ. All right. If you missed it today, the IAR or NCAA, Arizona, whoever you want to say, made this statement, but the IARP, who was the investigative unit for the NCAA, came out with their findings and their conclusion for Arizona. Well, not really Arizona basketball, but for their former head coach Sean Miller and his assistants. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but look, Sean Miller, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Sean Miller. I mean, because you know how I am with names. I mean, I already said Lamar, but Sean Miller, who's the former Arizona basketball coach, was under the investigation. He was on the wiretap with Will Wade. He was a part of the investigation, and he was pretty much cleared of any wrongdoing. Now, the NCAA did not have anything on him, or the IARP, anything on him in reference to transactions, him giving money to players. The only thing that he had, or they had on him, was really Sean Miller telling somebody, and I forget the gentleman's name, and an FBI wiretap that, Will Wade's paying everybody. Paid Naz Reid, paid the kid in Baton Rouge, I think was the exact quote. But his assistants were the ones doing it. Now, there's a lot of correlation. I shouldn't say a lot of correlation. There is some correlation with what Will Wade was accused of doing and what Arizona assistants were accused of doing. One of them got a 10-year show cause. My point in all this is being this. At this point, when all of these things come out, Christian Dawkins, that's it. When all of these things come out, I really don't care the outcomes anymore for the other teams. Like, I'm so past all of this. I'm so done with all this. The only thing that I care about at this point, it's not, and I don't mean this in a wrong way. It's not like I'm not trying to bash on Will Wade or anything like that. I just don't give a shit about what happens with Will Wade at the current moment when it's in the same breath and the same relation and the same things going on when it relates to LSU. So you don't want to hit Arizona. You don't want to hit Memphis. You don't want to hit Louisville, who is literally throwing bags of money at hookers. And they found, I read a police report about the Rick Pitino stuff in Louisville. They found cocaine in the middle of a dorm room and a hooker that was completely nude. You don't want to do anything with Louisville, but yet I'm just throwing this out there, not really in the defense of Will Wade, but you literally want to go out here and Will Wade and give him a 10-year show cause. That's fine with me. I really don't care at this point. Just what are you going to do with LSU? There's no appeal process. The last time I checked, we lived in a democracy, not a dictatorship. So I should be able to appeal something that you say about me. The FBI wiretap him saying a strong-ass offer, with all due respect, Pooh Bear, I'm going to give you a strong-ass offer not to go anywhere else on any other podcast at all times. What does that strong-ass offer mean? Again, I don't care. But I will promise you this. As God is my witness, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. If they come down on LSU, Mark Emmert's in trouble. Because I will pay for a Greyhound busload to send our happy asses, our Cajun asses up to Indianapolis, and we will peacefully protest outside the NCAA building. You got cocaine and hookers. You got Sean Miller on the FBI wiretap. I'm not going to say this because our next guest, but I'll just say it. I ain't going to hold my tongue. What was Penny doing? I mean, what was Penny doing? So all I'm going to say is you better chill out. The IARP. Dog, you even make a name that remotely sounds like AARP, which y'all's old asses up there. Mark Emmert, I'm just letting you know, dog. I'm just letting you know. If you didn't know, now you know. I will absolutely show my ever-living Italian ass all over Indianapolis. It will be so big that Jeff Saturday won't be able to block me out of Indianapolis. Peyton Manning's big-ass forehead, Paul's, won't be able to block me from getting into Indianapolis. Shout out to Peyton. Got his signed jersey right here. Shout out to my dad for buying that thing, too. Just letting you know. All right, we got a couple minutes. Just need to get that off my chest. Just need to get that off my chest. But Chad says, I'll have my ass on that bud with you, Blake. I'm telling you. Andrew Paulsub says the hookers and cocaine guy should have just recruited for Louisville instead of playing the lottery. That's true. Bro, they legitimately have a police report, and people legitimately went to Louisville PD who assisted, and they did a public records request, and they – listen to this. Listen how crazy this is. They named the plaintiffs Hooker 1, Hooker 2, Hooker 3, Hooker 4, Hooker 5, all the way down to 27. Dog, I don't know where y'all from. How in the hell you – I ain't seen 27 hookers in my life, much less one of them being in one dorm room. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I ain't seen 27 hookers in my life. How do you get all of them? You know who we can ask? Our buddy Hugh Freeze. He would know. Hugh's still mad at me. Pooh, by the way, I did get another DM. Just go. I ain't getting into all that. I don't want this show to get burned down. Whew, anyway, all right. Last thing, and we'll get to some football. Ant Marshall said Sean Miller had one level 1 violation. His assistant got a 10-year and a 2-year show cause. I get the outrage, but Miller doesn't compare to Wade. Wade is closer to Book Richardson than Miller. I agree. And that's exactly, I agree with that. That's exactly what I was saying. Okay. So, listen, you want to talk a little football? Let's do this. I do think it's about to be a massive day or massive week to close out the week for LSU. Look, Denver Harris, obviously we know, was at LSU today. I feel pretty good on it. I mean, if they're going to take him, we'll know very quickly. But don't panic if it goes into next week. Like, don't panic. Because you do have a massive weekend coming up. You have guys like Desmond Ricks that'll be in town. Don't panic. But I will tell you this. LSU has to do whatever they got to do to get DBU back. You're hurting at corner. Now, let me ask you this. I have faith that if Brian Kelly did meet with Denver Harris today and things went smoothly, with the former Texas A&M DB, I trust him to make the right decision. I will back his decision. I just hope that you're able to capitalize on other DBs. Now, Javian Taviano is another guy that will be committing tomorrow. 5-star DB out of Texas. There's a lot of things. So let me tell you before we get to Memphis, we got 1 minute here. But let me tell you what I've done all day, and I'll share this a little bit. But I do ask you to go to the premium message board, okay? AYSSnetwork.com, wrote it all in there. It would absolutely shock me if Taviano didn't, I just feel really good about it. Let me just say it like that. For the more intricate details, I think you need to go and subscribe, okay? The point being behind all this is that now that LSU's out back at bowl practice, I'm going to bring this up because Pooh's got it ready. Pooh, this is the only thing, like, if you're Jane Daniels, can you bring that up, the Mel Kiper thing? So this was Mel Kiper's big board for quarterbacks. Will Levis, Mel's just getting paid by an agent to put Will Levis at 1 here. That's the dookiest thing I've ever heard. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, which I was told C.J. Stroud's going to be down that list. There's apparently an issue. Anthony Richardson at Florida. How you got Anthony Richardson above Hendon Hooker surprises the ever-living dog manure out of me. Hendon Hooker, Jaron Hall, who? Jake Heener, who? And then you got Jaden Daniels at 8. I'm just going to say this. If I'm Brian Kelly and you get a guy like Denver Harris, you get Desmond Ricks, Taviano, and you're replenishing your team at a literally a 5-star level, hey, Jaden, brother, like, listen, let's run this thing back, right? Hey, I beat his apartment at 3:00 in the morning. Say, big dog, it's time to run this thing back. Hashtag that sucker. Run it back. You want to get back to greatness. You want to get back to glory. You want to get back to LSU just walking out of bed and having a 9-win season. You got to get it. I'm telling you, man, You got to get him back. You can hate me for it. You can say Garrett's better. We're going to have that debate all offseason. But I will promise you right now, you got to get him back. You got to get him back in the sense of this. You got to have the three guys battle. Let the best man win. Because it doesn't matter if Walker Howard or Garrett Nussmeier starts. Jane Daniels is going to play with even if one of those two guys starts, because you can't take away what he does with his legs. Just telling you. All right, let's get to Memphis Spence. I went over a little bit. I want to ask him right out the gate. He did break the Will Wade news on our show so many months ago. I want to get his quick take, then we'll get into football. But let's talk about our good friends over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, thedrakewilliamslawfirm.com. 59 seconds. We're back. Memphis Spence next.
By the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by.
We're back. I don't know how much you heard, but I apologize if your wife and kids or anybody did, because listen, Memphis.
I thought this was a family show, Blake.
As soon as we went to Sirius and TuneIn, you know this. I mean, they told me have at it. Hey, when my rant about LSU beating Alabama got over 100,000 listens, they were like, okay. Well, they called me. It's like, hey, you can't say the F-bomb. You said 27 F-bombs in 5 seconds, and then when it hit the 100,000, well, when they hit the 100,000 mark, they were like, never mind. We'll put
they were like, we'll pay for that. We'll pay for that.
We'll pay for that. All right, Memphis, I got to ask you. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
But Sean Miller, everything came out today with Arizona. Number one, do you think it was fair? And then number two, is this thing with Will Wade and LSU about to wrap up? Now, you broke the news on this show about a week before Will Wade got fired.
Yeah.
Is it about to, round up here? Like, could we expect something?
It should. It should be wrapping up here pretty soon. There were 6 cases by the IARP. And remember, I said the IARP, they're taking too long. It reminded me of the AARP, and it was just taking too long. They had some old folks on it. They're taking too long with their investigations. But most of the investigations they took on were in 2020, 2021. And here it is, December 2022, and they're still trying to wrap up. Here's some information, though. This whole process has been such a failure that they're disbanding this whole process after they wrap up these 6 cases. Think about that. They were like, this isn't working the way we want it to. Let's not do this anymore. But, let's going out the door. I don't think they were getting the convictions they wanted, because the cases were kind of complex, the ones that they were looking at, except for Louisville's, which I can't, throw the book at them.
There's 27 plaintiffs.
Yes.
And they all had Hooker in their name, and I'm not talking Hendon.
Right. So, there were kind of Louisville situation. I can tell you this. When I used to cover, the last time I covered Louisville was when I lived up there and Charlie Strong was still there, right? This is before I went to Texas.
Okay.
And
Teddy Two Gloves, baby. They're Teddy Two Gloves.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that media cycle, that media market, and what was going on at that university at that time was a 30 for 30 episode. I kid you not. The dirt that was being slinged, the whole the Adidas stuff that was Tom Jurich in and of itself, he was a mobster. No, literally, he's kind of a mobster. That entire segment of Louisville history is really a 30 for 30, and I hope somebody does it, because I can't wait till they get to some of the other details about what was going on in said locker rooms. You were dropping some knowledge. I was like, where's Blake getting that? Blake knows. Blake knows what was going on in the locker room.
One of my let me just say, a guy I played collegiate football with was on that staff.
Okay, gotcha.
Well,
gotcha.
A GA, but nevertheless, and he called me. It's like, bro, they're bringing.
It's wild. It's wild.
They called it. So the kids on campus called it the Rick James train, because they were bringing out plaintiffs one by one.
I mean, I can't argue with it, because it's like it was so wild, and I was just like, I can't believe this is all, because it's like a lot of the media there, and if you really want some really good stories, holler at Pat Forty. A lot of the media there at the time, we kind of knew some of the things that were going on, but it was one of those things. Well, if we ask, we won't get credentialed, because Tom Jurich don't play that. And, I was just like, this is kind of, this feels like censorship and asking certain questions.
No, an SID censorship in somebody? No.
All right. So, but, there are questions that you can't ask, you know what I'm saying? So I was just like, and some people would try to, or some people would, go about it, or some people would know things. And, for the newer media, you're like, people in the media room, like, don't ask that. Because it was worthy of a 30 for 30 episode, what was going on in Louisville during those last Rick Pitino years. From the time he got, and a lot of people outside of Louisville didn't know this story, from the time he got caught at Porcini's, with that girl, that wasn't his wife, under the table, from that point on, it was wild. Because the media, outside media, really wanted to cover him at that point, because what's this salacious story about Rick Pitino, right? Rick Pitino, known person. Why is he at this Italian restaurant downtown in Louisville under the table, getting this girl? Right? You're like, how Rick Pitino is on the floor doing what?
God.
I mean, it's just like, and it was, and the thing was, there are so many people protecting him at the time. We were like, wait a minute, this feels mobbish. This story, you're not going to get this story out. This is
an Italian man in an Italian restaurant was under a table getting some. Getting it.
And I was just like, man, you can't make this stuff up. You can't. And I was just like, man, that's Rick Pitino. And the fact that it didn't hit national news, I was like, everybody, we're not telling anybody about this. What's going on? We can't publish this. What's going on? So, but if you start looking back at the stuff, that's kind of where stuff started. And then he was forgiven, or I think the media, quote unquote, forgave him, because he filed a harassment charge, and said that the woman that he got caught with was trying to extort him. And all of a sudden the story went away. But from that point on, things were going on then that we were kind of like, but from that point on to the breaking cardinal rules, 30 for 30, no doubt. And if the IARP, if their job was to do one thing, it was to just throw the book at Louisville for this. And I don't even know if they did that. I mean, it's kind of lackluster as to what the job that this committee's done. And if they're not hitting Arizona, because Arizona, I'll be fair, Memphis and Arizona have been we've been in trouble before. We're not new to this. And so we have these attorneys that are boosters, both schools, that really just work on stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And so it may not be, which is probably how it got to the IARP anyway, because that's what with James Wiseman and everything else. That's why we went to court there in Memphis and, got a stay for him so he can play. We were like, okay, they're not going to do anything. We're going to get a stay so he can play and, play the games out until, we decide to take him off the court. So there was and the Wiseman thing was kind of complicated anyway, because when that payment went down, neither of them were at Memphis. They were both in high school, and there was a question of jurisdiction from beginning. Mm-hmm. So Tubby Smith was actually coaching at the time, that payment was given.
Was he in the Big Ten, or was he still at Kentucky? No, he went at Kentucky at that
time.
No,
Tubby Smith was at Memphis.
Oh, okay.
When the Wiseman payment was given.
Oh, yeah.
Penny was still coaching high school, and Wiseman was playing for him. He wanted to move him down from Nashville to Memphis.
That's right.
And there's a story behind that, honestly. And I mean, it's public record that Wiseman's mom went through a divorce. But it was there was a reason why Wiseman's mom
paid Penny back or something like that. Like when
she was supposed to and didn't, basically. Because she was working when she first got to Memphis, she was working for this barbecue joint. And it's $11,000. She didn't really have the funds right up. And figured that, I'll get you back later. And he doesn't need the money. He was just trying to get Wiseman closer to him for his AAU team and get him to play, there in Memphis City Schools from Nashville. But one of Wiseman's coaches in Nashville is a friend of mine, and that's kind of why I know the backstory on why they moved. And the divorce wasn't something that he probably should have been around anyway. Let's put it like that. So there was a backstory. I think Penny was trying to do the right thing. Like, hey, can, move this family out of a bad situation? Sure. Here's, money for the moving truck and everything else. Come play high school down here in Memphis. And then all of a sudden, 1 year later, they get rid of Tubby and he becomes, the head coach at Memphis. And then the following year after that is when Wiseman showed up. So the whole thing happened while they were in high school. It originally got cleared, and then they were like, wait a minute, did they do this on purpose? And that became the kind of fuel for the whole thing. But it was a jurisdiction question from the beginning that the NCAA didn't really have. Will Wade, if he didn't use his personal
bank account to
I still, that's the one thing that I was like, when that hit, I was like, oh man, how do you get this? That's your bank account.
Your wife's attached to it. And for them to find it, Memphis, they would have had to go and get a warrant and then having a subpoena issued to him to testify on that when the FBI case went against Christian Dawkins. So
exactly.
Look, we'll see. I just hope it wraps up soon, because this has been a black eye on college basketball for far too long. All right, yeah. I do want to hop over to you with football. I guess I don't necessarily know where to start because there's so much going on. I guess I should ask you how much do you follow recruiting, and then number two, I guess now how much do you follow it in reference to the portal and where guys go. And what teams they go to?
So not as much as I should, right? Mm-hmm. I wish I had more time to actually follow that, because I think it's interesting. I kind of knew when we put a portal in place that this was going to change how college football, what coaches did with college football. The two things that changed were the early recruiting period, when we changed that from just February to putting it here in December, right before Christmas, and the transfer portal. Those are the two big changes that have happened, this century, really, in college football. But it's changed the landscape because guys can go in, and they kind of pushed the period that you can get into the portal up. They kind of shortened it, so a lot of guys jumped in it. And there are a lot of people freaking out about how many people jumped in the portal, but I think after a few years, I think it'll settle out. Like, people going to the portal, if they definitely have some worth and some sort of prearranged agreement to get out of the portal, because there are a lot of guys that never get out of the portal. Not as many as last year or the year before. I think there's some strategy to it, but you can pick up a lot of. You can build. Sonny Dykes built that TCU team with a lot of guys from the portal.
Tucker, his second year in Michigan State, built that team off the portal. I mean, Brian Kelly.
So,
Brian
Kelly, right? So I mean, it's definitely something that has been, and depending on who you are. Someone was asking me the other day, do you think it's been a hindrance, or do you think it's actually helped level the playing field? And I was like, well, that depends on who you are. Because there used to be a way for Alabama, LSU, all of these dominant, Michigan, Ohio State, just to hold on to players and keep them away from other teams. Now those cats, they don't get the playing time. They're jumping in the portal, and they may go to a TCU or a Cincinnati, and that's why you see these teams that used to be, just the second, third rung teams have the talent to be able to get to the college football playoff, is because of that portal. So I think the portal in and of itself for college football has made it more interesting, but it's made the jobs at the elite schools harder. And I consider LSU to be one of those elite schools.
The teams, in my opinion, the teams that don't have significant starters leaving, Michigan, Georgia, they were the two schools that didn't lose
right.
Had the least amount of how do I want to say this? Like, production that they had returning didn't leave. Okay.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So obviously we know that Georgia had a lot of production leave and go to the draft, other things like that. But the production that they had coming back, all of it stayed. They were number one. The number two team, literally, is Michigan.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now you turn the flip side on that, though, Memphis. The number three team in the country is TCU. And what did they have to do? They had to do the complete opposite and hit the portal.
Right.
Ohio State was, I think, fifth in that. Okay, fourth or fifth in player retention rate from production. I mean, you got a quarterback back. So, I mean, but here's the kicker with that. The fifth team in the country, USC, sixth ranked team, LSU. So my point being is, I think holistically it's bad for the lower schools, but the schools like an LSU who are down on times and things, the USC, they're able to climb that ladder more than the 3-year mark. Now, I'll tell you what a prominent booster
told me. Yeah.
What a prominent booster told me about Brian Kelly when the hire was made. And I'm paraphrasing. He goes, 3 years my ass, like to get back to there in reference to, and so after they won the West, and he calls me and goes, see what I mean? See what I mean? Like his entire DB room outside of Jay Ward is the portal. Okay.
Right.
So
right.
I think for me, I wish that it was regulated more, right? In the sense of that, okay, listen, until the national championship is over, okay, nobody can go in the portal. I would even push recruiting back.
Well, see, let me ask you this, because, and I'm going to talk about this on the show tomorrow, honestly. Should we get rid of the early recruiting period and put the portal?
Unless you want to be a midterm enrollee, you should be able to get, let's just say 10 to 15 kids. Like, or you could just make it no limit. Okay. And say, hey, if you academically qualify to leave a semester early of high school and go into college, you worked your ass off to get there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's fair. You worked your ass off to get there. Memphis, why are we having recruiting before the football season's even over with? You know who doesn't do that? The NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball does it. They do it, but Major League Baseball isn't sending a guy right into like the NFL. You got to go single A, double A, triple A. There's rules into this, okay?
Right.
So my thing is I just don't understand why Brian. So as an example, Brian Kelly's having to worry about an SEC championship game when Nick Saban is recruiting the best DB on the board. Okay, so it's
Right.
fair. We're trying. It makes parity for Saban. Get the hell out of here.
There was a year, I think the first year that early recruiting started, Saban had the number 5 recruiting class, I believe, and Georgia had the number 1 recruiting class. And Saban and people were like, "Whoa, what happened here?" But and people started talking about it like, "Oh, he doesn't have a top, it's still top 5, but it's not, he's usually one of the 1, 2, there's a lot, like Scott just said, there's a lot of levels to this.
There's a lot of
levels to this. And taking away if somebody's gaining, somebody's losing in this. It feels more of a zero-sum game because there's a limit. There's not a unlimited amount of talent out there. There's a limited amount of talent, especially a limited amount of talent that's quote unquote NFL worthy or draftable talent that you're going to want on your top 25 teams. A lot of top 25 teams. I got to go back and look, but I think there's at least been two guys. I got to go back and look, but I think in the top 25, the ending top 25, there's at least been 2 guys on every team that have been like combine worthy or draftable, NFL draft picks, all the way up to, I don't know, what did Georgia have? 14 last year?
15, yeah. They tied,
15,
they broke or tied the LSU record, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a, sometimes you have double digits like LSU or Georgia, or even, I think even
LSU had double digits. LSU had 10 last year. I mean,
yeah. So and which goes to my point that it's never the talent with LSU. Never, because there's always talent there.
Yeah,
that's not the question. I'm never questioning whether or not
it's Ed Orgeron pulling a Rick Pitino.
I didn't say that.
I did. But so look, we can a couple more and we'll get you out of here. But Ryan asked this question to ask us: do you think the NCAA needs to expand the amount of max scholarships from 85? Then
that's a good question too, because that would solve some problems. So the issue
would solve high school problems, that's for sure.
Yeah, the issue that a lot of people are having right now with the way the process is shaking out is that there are a lot of offers, right? Offers given to these kids that they can't sign their letter of intent until this early signing period. Well, if you put the portal entry open and coaches are like, wait a minute, let me fill these holes now and then decide who I want to sign, that puts the high school kids at a disadvantage and honestly puts coaches in a situation where, hey, I know I gave you an offer to be my offensive lineman, but there's this kid coming over from LSU that I want to grab and see if I can work with him. I'm sorry.
That kid at LSU, as an example, yeah, he didn't have a productive year, a.k.a. Trey Palmer, but then you could go to Nebraska and have 73 catches, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns.
Exactly. You could go to a program. You could go to a program, get and for the it's not a real bad deal for the actual players that are actually in the portal. It's a worse deal for the actual guys that are trying to get recruited onto these teams. What's happening in a couple of years, on the 5th, I just did or Sports Radio America did. Jim and I rolled over to Daytona, and we broadcasted the second prep school national championship. These prep schools are getting loaded with guys that they call gray shirts, guys that, hey, we still want you, but we don't have a scholarship for you. Go to this prep school for a year and we'll get you next year, basically. You're not going to lose your eligibility. So a lot of these guys are piling into IMG has a prep school now.
They have 92 of them.
they got a prep school with some talent on it. They were in that championship. Flight Academy, the national championship was IMG versus Flight Academy. And Flight Academy is from Ohio. They're closer to Dayton. And both of those schools, I was like, man, these are college football teams here. And I was like, oh, and Jim was trying to explain to me, well, you know what it is. The coaches are actually stacking kids that have already really declared where they want to go. It's not a secret that this kid's going to Nebraska and this kid's going, but they don't have the scholarship for them.
Mm-hmm.
So to that point, these gray shirts are actually happening. Guys are getting promised like, hey, I got a scholarship for you. I just don't have it this year. Go to this prep school. You won't lose any eligibility. You'll still have all your years of eligibility. We don't have to redshirt you, and we'll just grab you next year. You've practiced, you've worked out, you've actually strengthened yourself for a year. And that seems to be something that's picking up because they haven't expanded the qualifications and from 85. If they were to do that, say they were just to bump it up to 90, I think that solves a lot of problems when you're talking about recruiting, or it would now. But 95 to 100 would actually solve a lot more problems. Then you could actually have folks on your bench and on your roster. If you have any key injuries, there's a guy that you can pull off, that you don't have to redshirt. You can always pull from your. What I see happening in college football is something that happens in Major League Baseball a lot. They're using these prep schools as minor league, and they're just going to bring them up. Hey, there's a major injury. We don't have enough offensive linemen. Let's pull our guys up. Let's pull them up. If they don't play for four games, they still have that eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Pull them up late in the year. 3 games, you still have all of your eligibility. You can go. You can even hit the portal if you want. So there's a lot of things that we're going to see in college football that's going to mimic, professional sports here just because of how things are set up. But honestly, I agree with you, Blake. Get rid of the early signing period and get rid of the transfer portal until after everything is said and done. If we really want, and now that we're expanding, they're going to really have to take a look at this, because now that we're expanding the playoffs to 12 games, you can't have guys on these teams, that are, or 12 teams. You can't have guys on these teams shuffling around in a transfer portal before these games start. Yet,
Memphis, and I tell you, you bring up an interesting point there. I mean, because and then here's another question to that point.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to affect everybody in recruiting? Because let's call it what it is. Teams 5 through 12 have a playoff game this weekend.
Right.
Okay. They have a playoff game this weekend at home.
Right.
It's early signing day this weekend.
Right.
This upcoming week. So with all due respect to them, they don't. But see, here's Memphis. I said this earlier. If Mark Emmert hits and pops LSU for this IARP stuff, there are so many peaceful, protestful moments that they do in college football that just drive me insane. And people, look, you might kill me on this, me saying this. I think we need a commissioner for every sport. I truly believe that I'm
glad you said that, because I've been trying to think, Mark Emmert's been.
He can't control it all. Memphis, you know this as a college voter. You can't watch all 25 teams.
No.
Unless you're doing this
I
job.
can watch some of them, but I can't watch all the games. I have to go back and look at
You and me probably do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on all the SEC, which usually is about 6 to 7 games a week at max.
Right.
Unless it comes on at night, I'm Googling the stats for the Pac.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Googling a lot of the stats for the Big Ten. That's how a lot of these voters do it. You know it, and I know it. So my point being to all this, Memphis, people call me nuts. You're gonna have to keep a commissioner because Mark Emmert and this team can't do it all. And I will tell you, I'll get your thoughts on it. You gotta have somebody that's the head honcho. Hey, Greg, shut the fuck up. Okay.
Right.
We're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we're gonna do it, and you're gonna abide by it and make a panel. I don't know what you gotta do, but you can't tell me that it's going in the right direction when you talk about recruiting and you got a playoff game this Saturday. Because how are you supposed to host? Like LSU's hosting this weekend. They'll have the number one corner there, number one corner from ING, Desmond Ricks. How are you supposed to recruit?
Well, you won't be. You can't be in 2 places at once, and you can't really. You're not going to be able to do it with the new format that we're going to. at all. You couldn't really. It was going to be. It's been a pain, honestly, for Nick Saban. This entire time, he doesn't like the early recruiting period at all because he feels that it negatively affects Alabama because they're usually trying to focus on, putting a plan together to win the playoffs. They've been in, half of these playoffs, maybe more than that. And they're usually like you're working on a plan, to get to the playoffs. Now, if you're doing that and people are jumping in the portal, well, wait a minute, we may have needed this guy on this play. He doesn't want the playing time or whatnot. And you would think that it's going to get more pronounced when we expand. If you're 1 through 4, you might stick around just to see what happens. If you're 5 through 12, nah, man, And what happens when this happens? What happens when there's an early period to jump in the portal, and then all of a sudden somebody jumps from the number 12 team to the number 3 team in the portal? Are they immediately eligible to play in the playoffs?
They won't be able to do that. They can't.
I mean,
they won't be.
There are some guys that are immediately eligible. I mean, can you jump from one team to another right before the playoff game? I mean, there are going to be some things, and that's why I think that we should push everything back. Like when I started, signing day was in February.
It was in February. Everybody
signing day was in February. We had a whole thing. We used to go to high schools and broadcast from high schools to see where people were going. And that was
I used to say signing day every day, every year in February.
Exactly. But it was after
they knew that the birth of my child, I might not take off, but damn it, I'm going to take off on signing day.
Yeah, but it was after things had been determined for that year, right? It was after we knew who the national champion was, or at least we thought we knew. So somebody voted on it, somebody played a BCS game, somebody played a championship game, and we had a national champion, and then that's when recruiting started, basically. And also the other thing that happened when we put the early recruiting early signing period into December, you started firing coaches in October. You had to, because you had to have somebody in place by Thanksgiving so they can hit the trail and pick up as many NIL.
And here's another thing. We can go down a rabbit hole, but to kind of end it, because we're over time here, but to end it here, and here's another thing. What if, hypothetically, I want to hire the coordinator at Alabama and I have an opening and he's in a playoff game?
Yeah, that too. I mean, there's so many things that I'm not sure. And this all lies at the foot of Mark Emmert. He's on his way out. He don't
want to deal with it.
He's a lame duck. But I think we all need to think as a collective body of broadcasters and people who have a stake in this, the boosters and everything else. We need to think about what the structure of our college football management is going to be from now on, because it's been so ineffective in these last 5-10 years. It's been so ineffective that teams are leaving the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to get into the SEC and the Big 10, and it's really shrinking. Now you have some FCS teams. You got 10 FCS teams that want to jump up to FBS, and I'm like, wow, they're just doing this because they're money chasing right now. They're just trying to fill the gaps that are going on.
No doubt. All right, Memphis, thank you so much. Tell everybody, tell everybody where they can catch all your stuff, everything that y'all do.
Sports Radio America. I'm about to shut this thing down, man. I got a show tomorrow and one on Monday. My Monday show is going to be the last show of the year. I usually take the last couple of weeks off to breathe, spend some time with family.
I know,
get some eggnog, holler at my boy Blake. Talk some business about the next year. That's kind of what we do at the end of the year, is just take some time off to spend with family. So got 2 more shows.
Go get presents. That's all I do. Give me my present.
That's right. So, but Sports Radio America, we had an interesting year this year. This was the first year that COVID didn't really affect everything that we did. Right. It still affected some stuff, but it didn't affect everything that we did. So we're definitely looking into 2023 and figuring out exactly where what's broadcast look like for the future. A lot of things change over.
You can always stream on AYS.
we could always stream on AYS. That might be what's in my Santa stocking. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. You know, your wife might have been good to you this year. Who knows? All right, I gotta go. We're past time. I gotta go. Later, brother. Peace.
Take care, my man.
All right, that's Memphis Spence joining us. All right, way past the time. Way past the time. All right, we're out of here. Pooh Bear, 8:15, correct? Golden Boot. All right. I'll be over there. I'll be a listening. All right. We'll talk soon. See y'all tomorrow. Peace.